Hello, I am Professor Rathod, going to deliver the lecture on nuclear power plant, also called as nuclear energy. This topic comes under the subject of applied thermodynamics under sources of energy of the power plant. So, in this diagram, the nuclear power plant diagram shows the layout of nuclear power plant. The nuclear power plant basically consists of the different parts like shield, nuclear reactor, control rods, moderator, pump, heat exchanger, primary coolant, secondary coolant, feed water pump, steam turbine, condenser, and pump and cooling tower. So the main advantage of this nuclear power plant, the nuclear energy generation does not cause air pollution if hazard of reactivity are properly prevented. Large quantity of energy is released with consumption of only a small amount of fuel. Fuel transportation network and large storage capacity are not required for locating a nuclear power plant. Only a reasonably good supply of water is required, though it has having a little disadvantage, that is disposal of nuclear waste and problem of radioactivity in the plant. So basically the fuel used in this is uranium. That is denoted by U235, that is suffix 235, is a fuel in nuclear power plant, which is in which the important parts of the nuclear power plant and their function. The first part is nuclear reactor. The nuclear reactor, energy is released in the reactor by fusion of uranium 235 atom. This energy is taken away by primary coolant. Now, next part is moderator. The moderator, which is shown inside the shield of this diagram, in the left part of the diagram, which it shows, that is the moderator. The chain reaction of the neutron produced are fast moving neutrons. The fast moving neutrons are far less effective in causing fusion of U235. Moderator are basically used to improve the utilization of these neutrons. Their speed is reduced. This speed reduced is done by moderators. That is the basic function of the moderator. Then the next part of it is a control rod, that you can see the control rod in the diagram. That is the energy produced in the reactor due to fusion of nuclear fuel during chain reaction is so high that if it is not controlled properly, the entire core and surrounding structure may melt. Hence, the reaction is controlled by means of control rods. Basically, the reaction is controlled by means of control rods. The control rods, after insertion, absorbs more neutrons and drop down the reaction. Thus, by shifting the control rod manually or automatically, power of reactor can be controlled. So this is the main function which plays by the control rod, which is we can see in the diagram, that is control rods. The next one of the important part is heat exchanger. What happens in the heat exchanger? Heat exchanger, that you can see in the diagram, that is heat exchanger which connects the two diagram. So what the heat exchanger? It absorbs by primary coolant from the reactor is transferred to the secondary coolant, which is water. The secondary coolant is then converted into the steam. Then henceforth the diagram which is basically that contains the next right part of the diagram, which contains basically the steam turbine, which is connected to the generator. Then turbine is connected to the condenser is again connected with the cooling tower, that it contains pump also. Then it goes to the feed water, and then it goes cold water provides to the heat exchanger. That is how the diagram is. Then the next part, steam turbine. You can see the steam turbine expands and drives the turbine, which in turn drives the generator. And the next part is condenser. You can see the condenser part in the diagram. The condenser, it condenses exhaust steam from the turbine. And the next part is cooling tower. Just you can see in the diagram, which is connected to the condenser. The circulating water in the condenser absorbs heat from the steam which condenses. This heat is given to atmosphere in the cooling tower, and that is the function of the cooling tower. Cooling tower is always connected to the condenser, which supplies the water, and so that the condenser condenses it, and that condenses goes to the feed water, and it again goes to the circuit. And the next part is pumps are required for maintaining flow of primary coolants, secondary coolant, and cooling water in the condenser. So these are the main parts of the nuclear power plant. However, in India, the generation of the power by nuclear power plant is very small. However, it is planned by the year 2005 AD, 12,000 megawatt of electrical power will be generated by nuclear power plant. So in this diagram, the matter consists of minute particle is known as atoms. The minute particle which contains, that is known as the atoms. These atoms have very high binding energy. By introducing neutron to enter heavy nucleus like uranium, the nucleus is split or fusioned into two or more light nuclei which have combined mass less than that of original nucleus. The loss of mass is converted to energy according to Einstein's mass energy equation. That is, we know the equation is E equal to mc square, where E is energy, m is mass, and we know the c is velocity of light. So in this nuclear power plant, if you can see the diagram neatly and clearly, so if we compare this diagram to the steam power plant, instead of boiler, what the equipment is connected, that is nuclear reactor, we can say. That is a nuclear reactor which is consist of the shield, the moderator, the control rods, which is connected with help of primary coolant, and then it is connected to the secondary coolant, primary coolant and secondary coolant, which are connected each other with help of the heat exchanger. So instead of boiler, the equipment which one connected is nuclear reactor. Remaining, if we compare this plant with the steam power plant, then remaining all that the steam turbine and the condenser and the feed pump remains same. That is the big difference between the steam power plant and nuclear power plant. Nuclear power plant is one of the important source of energy. If we supply 1 kg of uranium, that equals with 400 kg of coal. It means this one is most and most advantageous. The advantage which I state above of this continuation, this discussion. So this is all about the nuclear power plant. Thank you. Thanks.